Well, what's up, Soul Warriors? I got an amazing episode for you guys tonight. I got my good friend, fellow podcaster, just amazing human being, Martin John Garcia, in our house. I'm going to bring him up in just a second. I want to wait for the room to fill up just a little bit because this guy's a gem to me. He's a good friend to me. And I really want you to get here and bring your friends because you haven't heard a conversation like this. Martin has an amazing artistic style to his mentorship, just his podcast, the way that he digs deeper to crash out of the limitations of our labels. And he's just an extraordinary human being, just like all of us are and all of you are. And so I'm really, really excited for the room to build up and for us to welcome our good friend. Tonight, we're also going to be doing a giveaway. Martin's going to be giving away 3 tickets to his next workshop, which if you can, come on in and bring some friends because that would be just an amazing soul-opening, heart-opening, life-enhancing experience. And we've never done a giveaway on the Recovery Soul Food podcast. So I'm grateful that he's here and I get to do this for the first time with him. So if you guys feel led, please go ahead and share this message out. It's going to be an amazing conversation. We've got him strapped down in a chair for a whole hour with us. Now, I don't know if he knew it's a whole hour. His face might be going a little wild behind the scenes, but that's all right. That's how we do people here. We just kidnap them and keep them here for an hour. That's what we do. And so thank you guys so much for all the love and support that you've been sending my way lately. We're going to go for, at this moment, we're going to go for Wednesdays for the Recovery Soul Food Morning Motivation. So that's going to be Wednesday mornings at 8 p.m. Eastern time. 8 a.m. I'm already messed up. Not p.m. 8 a.m. Eastern time every Wednesday for now. And just keep watching YouTube because I'm going to be doing some better things there and some more creative things on that platform. So you guys, if you're ready, then I'm ready. Let's let the Recovery Soul Food meet Martin John Garcia. All right, Soul Warriors. When I think about tonight's guests, I think of a strong leader who is self-sacrificing yet balanced, a champion for the underdogs and the counted out, a master of personal power, creativity, awakening, growth, self-knowledge, and vision. He is an extraordinary artist and recovery mentor. His podcast, Recover Yourself, dares his listeners and guests to go deeper within to those places we'd rather not visit, but where true healing and self-discovery live. He is not afraid to make connections with and learn from the very souls the world and society has cast out. And he is, in fact, an ally to all of us, as we all have found ourselves cast out by this society. His mentoring process is unique and profound, and he is constantly and consistently pushing the limits of normal to achieve greatness and complete enlightenment. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome my friend Martin John Garcia. What's up, Martin?
Hey, man, you got so much energy for a Sunday evening. It's gloomy out here in the Midwest, so I'm a little more subdued. But I'm gonna tap into some of that energy you got.
You better get some, man.
I know, guy. I got an hour. No, I kind of figured it'd be an hour. I was like, any conversation with me can't be any less than an hour.
Oh my gosh, you guys I wish you knew. When we get on with Martin, it's just like we go forever and ever. We go deeper and deeper, and just when you think we've gone as deep as we can go, we go deeper again. Man, I love you, man, and I'm grateful to have you here. And I'm pretty energized because I haven't gotten to do this a lot lately. Like I'm fresh back on the scene after, this crazy 2020. And we just thought that the first and mid part of the year got crazy, and then it really blew up. So, I'm grateful to have you here for my return to masses. And man, so as I do with the guests that I bring on, I really like to bring folks on that are really going for true healing and recovery, like, shattering the paradigms of there's just this one way to do it. And ever since you and I made our first connection through our good friend Jen, I have just found you to be so different than any other human being I know, so open, to experience things, and you're not afraid, just like in your opening, I said, you're not afraid to really reach out to each and every human being that has a story that you're drawn to. And that's unique. That's not the norm here in our society. And, I think if we had quite a few more yous, man, and a few more me's, and, people would really start to see each other for the human being that we are. And so tell us and me how did you get here? Like how did you go through your own struggles and come to this space?
Okay, so I'm gonna go off the cuff, and I don't have an answer for that is canned, right? So I'm gonna go off the cuff on this. I don't normally like talking about like my drunk history and all that kind of stuff, my days of using and all that kind of thing. But what I'm realizing right now is that I held the label of stupid for most of my life. So I was stupid until I realized I was smart. One of the things that being stupid does, and because I was in remedial classes in school, and in remedial classes I was still going to summer school. So the identity of of someone that's stupid, like that's just what a stupid kid does, right? And I think that was something that I identified as. And so I knew I had to work hard. I knew I had to work hard and I got dyslexia and all this other stuff, but whatever. I just knew I had to kind of go deeper, because what I was being presented with didn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
As an adult, I took a single Spanish class after learning most of my Spanish through conversation. And as soon as I went into that class, I was lost. And it was the structure of the classroom and the fear of the judgment of being graded and all of these other things. All of this stuff came flooding back. And it was a really great experience, because I always love being triggered. When I get angry, when I get frustrated, when I get upset, even when I get happy, after that emotional state subsides, I look back inward and I say, why? Why did I get angry? Why did I get happy? Why am I frustrated? Why did these things happen? And I always try and figure out like the story behind the experience that I had, because it's not about the structure of the classroom doing anything.
Right.
It's about how I perceive the structure of the classroom and the judgment of being graded. And it wasn't even going to be graded. It was funny because I have a cousin in Spain, and he was like, "Yeah, but you're stressed about the class, like you're taking it to have fun." And I'm like, that's an interesting way of looking at it, because no, that's not why I'm taking it. I'm taking it to not be stupid.
There you go.
And I realized that the way I packaged how I looked at the world really laid out a way that I perceived how I was being perceived.
Yes. Yes.
So in that going deeper, I realized today that I can sit down with you and have a super, super deep conversation and walk away and not even recognize that it was deep.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Just be like, yeah, that was, people always tell me, man, that's deep, right? People that go to my workshops, like the last workshop I had, they were like, I didn't know I was going to go this deep on a Thursday morning. And that was within 30 minutes of the start of my workshop. And I'm like, this is deep for you.
Yeah.
Like being stupid was the thing, right? Was that the identity that forced me to continue to go deeper because I thought everybody around me was going deeper. And so in order for me to have survived that, I had to, but see, what they teach you in school, what they were teaching me was the surface. They were like, this is the answer. And all you got to do is put the answer in the test. That didn't make any sense to me. And so I had to go deeper to understand. And that's why I was getting bad grades and all these other things, because I couldn't memorize the answer. I needed to know what was going on.
Yeah.
And so who I am doesn't translate in the same way that, so I have to go through a lot of experience. So it took me longer, but I know some shit now, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I just happen to know some shit. It's not like I went out of my way to know it. I recognize it. I can piece things together. There's a meme going around now where it's like information's a bunch of dots, and then they have education, and they have this kind of structured thing that, the dots are connected in some way. And then there's like intelligence, and they're all connected in all these different ways. And that's kind of how I see how I've gotten here, because I didn't set out. I mean, I got 20 years clean and sober on the 14th of next month. I didn't set out to give back in this way through recovery. My portrait work isn't necessarily for those in recovery. I talk about it all as recovering yourself, but what is recovering yourself? For me, it's recovering your whole self.
The whole self.
Because as a child, you give up of yourself for your parents, you give up of yourself for your teachers, your caregivers, and eventually your partners, your bosses, your neighbors, and you give little bits of yourself up. And as you give up of yourself, you lose that.
Absolutely.
The longer you go without that, the harder it's going to be to get back.
So true.
And so that's why when I talk about things, I talk about this as space of like, we want you. We had your folks already. We don't need that anymore.
Right.
We need you to shed all that. And I don't want to work with teenagers. They got to get fucked up in order to get back, like I don't think they're fully developed, but I want them to get the message that like you can be you, so they don't have to get fucked up.
So you don't, so you don't have to go through that. Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So like spreading that conversation so that they can. The thing is they're still living under their parents.
Yeah.
So they're not independent.
Not yet.
Right. Yeah, and they don't have the ability to be independent, because even when parents put their children through therapy, their parents have ideas of what they want, and they'll pull their kid out of therapy if they're not getting what they want.
Very true.
Because they're afraid, because they can't be themselves, and so they have to train their kids how to not be themselves.
Absolutely. And so you and I talk a lot about how the labels limit, and we've had great conversations about that. And I too, we know this about each other. I too can almost get excited when I get triggered, because then I have a place in my a compass then to kind of go back and say the same questions. Well, why did I get? And in the messages that I try to give here on these platforms is don't be afraid to do that. Like, what you're saying is so true, because we do give away all of these little pieces and we really try to gain a lot of approval. And a lot of people can tell me about, that their addictions, regardless of what it is. I don't care if it's substance, habits, people, whatever. You can tell me that that's just, oh, I don't have any deep issues. I just did it for fun and that's okay. Well, I think we could, give me 5 minutes and we can figure out that there's somewhere in there is a belief system that you adopted somewhere. Like, we just don't, escape from something we don't feel that we necessarily have to escape from. So I appreciate you sharing that part, how, it's not been we don't have to run away from the trigger. We don't have to see a trigger warning and turn around and run away. Like, we need to visit certain things so we become to know who we are. I don't think that's why I believe, for me, that addiction and all of the things that I have been through in my life are a gift to me at this point, because they have put me on the path to find out who I truly am. And you and I know I've never known. I've been having to keep a pretty thick wall up my entire life. And so I appreciate you sharing that belief that you had adopted that identity. And I want to ask you, in your work, do you see that the majority of those you work with have adopted some type of identity as well?
Like we all have, right? Like one, yeah. I mean, we're just, we that is our culture. Our culture, you don't have a choice, right? You don't really have a choice. Like, I'm sure, I mean, I still have identity issues, like labels and things like that. Those still exist. They're just too prevalent to step away from it. The thing that my clients, my one-on-one clients, let's say, kind of, they don't realize the label that they're holding, right? And they're all, we don't want to be told we're stupid. Like in my case, right? I don't want you to tell me I'm stupid, because even though I recognize that I'm stupid and I'm calling myself stupid, having that called out outright, that's not going to sit real well. And if it does sit well, then I'm doubling down on my stupidity, right? So it's one or the other. Either I double down or I try not to identify with it.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to look at. And so recovering yourself, the way I look at it and the way I kind of put it out there, is always about, like, yeah, you don't want to know that you don't do this. I call this awareness avoidance, right? Like, you're constantly avoiding being aware of that which you don't like about yourself. And then you're going to say, no, I love myself, because that's the right answer. But if I recently did an interview with this guy, Andrew Stulman. And Andrew Stulman, he is a hard science guy. The reason I wanted to do an interview with him is because he's talking about something called intuitive theories. So hard science is physics, chemistry, math, stuff like that. When you're a child and you start experiencing how things move in the world, or if I ask you as a child, what is alive? You're going to say people, planets, things that move. Movement creates life in our minds as children.
Yes.
But if I ask you if a plant is alive, you're going to say no, like little kids. Eventually, 5 or 6, when you start developing, going to school and developing more, you're going to say, yes, plants are alive. So the intuitive theory is plants are not alive because they don't move. But we realize that plants are alive, right? When those people get into older age and start to go into dementia, they revert to the intuitive theory, because you have to overcome that intuitive theory every time you think about it. It's easy to do at our age. Now, the thing that made me so excited about talking to Andrew Stulman was that, oh my God, that's exactly what we do for relationships and identities and all these things that we hold for ourselves. So as a child, you're going to be in the midst of a relationship with your parents and your siblings and all of this other stuff. And you're going to have identities within that relationship.
That's true. Yeah.
As you get older, let's look at those as intuitive theories about how you exist within a relationship. My guess is you're going to then have other relationships that mimic, at least some relationships that mimic those. Andrew Stulman talks about this space of time constraint. When we're under a time constraint, it takes us longer to answer the question, is a plant alive? So a time constraint under the hard science definition, I want to take to the soft sciences and say, that's a trigger. When you are hungry, angry, lonely, tired, you have to realize that you're not accessing the answers to the events that are happening around you. You don't have a relationship to the events that are happening around you that are the ones that you would most want to subscribe to.
Yes.
So what ends up happening is you turn to these intuitive theories, and these intuitive theories I call perceptions. So you have a perception that you are the youngest in your family. You're a perception that you are you're the one that always needs help. You have a perception that you're the one that doesn't get help. You have a perception that nobody cares about you. You have a perception, whatever came in and created this perception or intuitive theory, all of a sudden you are relating to in a new way. And it's not a way that you would want to be relating to that if you were not under a trigger.
Very true. Very true. I love the way you have to put things, man. I just love it.
And the thing is it took me 5 minutes to explain, right? Like, if I could explain that to people in a really short way, it'd be great. But you can't. There's too much going on. You are complex. And if you want it simplified, then you're only asking to avoid being aware of who you are.
Absolutely. And really, your power, there is so much to us that is almost, we're programmed to be hidden. And once we think that, if we get everything that society says for us to get, and we get the answers, then we're living up to our potential. But in fact, it is until we, unveil ourselves and all of the things that you talk about, that I talk about, that your guests talk about, the things that would say go deeper, is where we really start to understand who we truly are. And it is those subconscious belief systems. It is those perceptions. I had to figure out that most of my entire life was built around the perceptions I had of myself. And through the perceptions I had of myself, I then perceived my world. And then we wonder why the same things continue to happen time in and time out. And yet we don't really realize, because we make these small, very conscious attempts to change places in our lives, and yet the same things keep happening. And we don't understand, and we think, oh, that doesn't work for me. And yet it's because that there's so much behind that other than just a conscious choice. It goes so much deeper. That's why for me, recovery is about healing. It's not about just getting clean and sober. That made no sense to me. How was I going to get clean and sober and drudge through my life with the same perceptions and the same, identities and denying myself of myself. It wasn't going to happen. It had not ever before. And so the choice came down, and we curse the worst days of our lives. We many times curse the triggers, and we curse the moments, and we curse our past, and we curse our history. And yet those are the things that when our backs are against the wall, we will come out wanting more of ourselves. More.
So this is like what you're addressing is the thing that I talk about a little bit, which is punitive versus restorative, right? Like so many of our thoughts, and this is not for those in active addiction. This is not for those that are like just starting in their space of recovery, but we beat ourselves up, right? And that's punitive. That is how criminal justice works, right?
Yep.
When you do something wrong, there's a part of you that you demonize, you criminalize, and then you do not you don't give them enough space to exist, and there's no restoring that, right? This is a bad part of me, this is a good part of me, and those are labels.
Yep.
When we can start to look at restorative relationships, right? I want to restore this part of me that I think is bad to the whole of me, right? Because I am complex.
Yep.
I am complex. And when we can do that, when we can step away from this punitive sort of relationship we have with ourselves, and start to move towards a restorative place, that's when we start recovering ourselves. That's when we start to say, look, I'm not a great person. I am God, but I am not godly as it is described. Right? I am not godly in these label identifiable ways.
Right.
The Tao states, true artistry seems clumsy, things like that, where it's like, you can't just bingo, right? Like, so you can't just express something as being pure. I'm going off on a story. So a couple of years ago, I found one word that would trigger me to no end.
Right.
That was douchebag. You called me a douchebag? Like, I'd be fucking pissed, right? Like, I would not be happy with you. I don't care who you are. You call me a douchebag, even jokingly, like, I would get that trigger. Okay. So I realized at some point that was really the only word you could call me. Like, and I was getting pissed at. So I had to examine that. I had to say, okay, well, how do I identify a douchebag? Douchebags are womanizers. Douchebags are salesmen. Douchebags put things in the world that take up space and don't offer anything. And these are all the things that I am the antithesis of.
Yeah.
Right.
So true.
And yet, I had to get over being called a douchebag because I have to do sales. I have to do cold calls. I also, not that I want to be a womanizer, but I want to be an honest sort of have more open relationships with women. So all of that together was like, wait, I want things in my life, and I am, because like I'm being drawn toward it. I am, and I hold values that are similar to a douchebag. So I had to come to grips with that. I had to be like, wait, the action that I am asserting towards a label is not the same when I do it. But what that means is I have to strip the label apart. I have to get rid of the label. Now, I used to call people douchebags. I used to, like I'm not always my best self, right? But you move towards it. And so getting rid of that label, not just because I wanted to identify with some of the actions that were in there, because the purpose of somebody who was a douchebag doing those and purpose of me doing them are very, very different. But I was labeling the action, just like labeling a person. The action has nothing to do with the label. The action is deep beyond our comprehension, right? Like sometimes things just look bad, but they're not. I had someone in my last workshop, and she was like, she realized that all these things that she did was trying to not be a bad person, but we had to come to this place of like, well, you might have to do things that seem or are being done by bad people just so you can live, and you have to identify with that. Like, you have to figure that out. You have to figure out, like, what are you at odds with in the world? Because once you label yourself, you're turning off a lot more than you're turning on.
Yeah, you're turning off possibilities, and you are turning on only what is held within that label. That's it.
And only what is held within that label within your mind, because that label could be held by other people in different ways, wider or more narrow, but you are limiting yourself in every way.
That's where I've been lately in this place where, I live and I work on this resort type island. So, there are loads of many different people that come here by the day. You rarely ever see the same, person twice. It's just the way it is. And so I've really been wrapping my mind around the space that what I experience is what is in my own existence. And yet I'm seeing strangers that are also experiencing their own full life. And for me, sometimes I just sit with that thinking, this is how limited my knowledge is, that if I'm not looking at something, it cannot exist to me. And, and seeing so many strangers each and every day reminds me that there is so much of life that is not within my gaze, within my sight, and yet it's happening anyway. And how quick we are to limit ourselves by just the knowledge that we have, because I think, and it's just my own theory, is that we stay in the knowledge. I deal with people that do not like to step outside of their knowledge base every day. And I feel like we stay in that knowledge base because, again, it keeps us comfortable, keeps us safe, and it keeps us lazy. It means I don't have to stretch myself to understand anything else because I'm kind of happy right now with the way things are. So if I give myself an excuse, especially if I call it biblical, then I can give myself the excuse that, oh, I don't have to stretch myself in that way. So for me, I believe that for my own life and recovery, that stretching is what I've come to enjoy. And it's not to say the word enjoy in the regular definition. Again, the perception that we have of enjoy. I often say, and when I'm talking here in my weekly videos, is change your definition of joy and happiness and fun, because the more you allow yourself to get involved with that trigger, you take the power over the trigger. Whenever you close yourself off to the things that stretch you, you allow that thing to have your power. When in fact, when you begin to dig down into it and you say, I see you, trigger, I see you, emotional instability right now. Let's look at this. You're sitting down with this thing. It's like, this conversation that you're having with this whole other part of you. the part that maybe believes what the world says is good, success, and where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to be. I mean, for me, waking up to the fact that the reason I believed I was a failure for so many years of my life is because I did not live up to the ideas that my grandparents had for what success was. I thought to myself, when I awakened to that I never really failed, because I never failed at anything I tried to do on my own. I only failed at what they thought was right for me, which wasn't right for me. So really, I freed myself from that whole failure, and I wasted so much time, man.
Well, I wanna point out that it doesn't sound like you have.
Leave it to this guy now. He does this to me
like, I'm sorry, but like
no,
that's a huge trigger. So I'm gonna break down what you did just
good.
now. One, you attacked and labeled something, and you called it lazy, right? So then you started talking about your grandparents and like this success and other stuff like that. My guess is that you're holding on to a lot of fear of being lazy, fear of being seen as lazy, right?
Sure.
And that fear of being seen as lazy is co-opted and is working with this fear of not being successful, not being seen as successful, because that's important. And then that on top of everything is your and something that I just know because we've talked is your connection to your grandfather.
So very much so.
So all of those things are still, even though you have built a nice fortified sort of defense, because you're right in everything that you're saying. Unfortunately, it doesn't sound to me, and I may be totally wrong here, that you have gotten to a place where you absolutely believe it.
I think you're probably right. I think that I'm working. I think it's a daily thing for me to work towards that.
Right.
And I think
and this isn't something that you're trying to get away from, right? Like,
no, exactly.
This is just your work. And the thing is the work. What we want to do as individuals is check the trigger, because the trigger still exists. Like that was a trigger, right? Like, you had an emotional response to that. We look at that as a time constraint. You are now reverting to what we mentioned earlier as intuitive theories. You're reverting to space, and I'm going to utilize the term anger because there was a little in there.
Sure.
And it's just you and me, dude. Right?
I know.
What happens is we go from you and I at this moment, I hope, are in our mindsets are in what's known as the default mode. Meaning, I can see my cat out of the corner of my eye, no big deal, everything's cool. I can hear other things going on in the house. I can pay attention to you without being distracted. What happened when you were talking was that you went and you put blinders on, and you were going, and it didn't matter where you were. Right? And all of a sudden you were on a path that was pulling you. You had no way of responding to it because you had these blinders on. And that's known as the salient network in our brain. That's fight, flight, freeze, fawn, fornicate, whatever. So what ends up happening is and that's one of the big things that I look for when I talk to clients and stuff is all right, you're wrong, right? Straight up, what you're saying, it's true, but you're still a victim in this, right? And yes, you've gotten past the big sort of what it is, but can you break that down now so it doesn't fucking matter? Right? And that's the step and that's just check in your fucking, like, sorry about my swearing. I know this. I know you have a you have a religious following possibly and stuff. So being in the South, I don't know. I swear a lot. So I'm just checking that really quick. So one of the things is like, when it doesn't matter that you get triggered here, because a lot of times being triggered is an important aspect, but recognize that you're being triggered and going back to it and going like, where did it go? Where did I revert to the intuitive theory or a perception or however we want to describe it? Where did I revert to this thing that I don't really believe? I know that getting angry at this isn't going to help. Yeah. I know, like, my grandparents aren't even around to tell me this shit. I mean, maybe they are, but they're not. And yet, you know, I have loyalty to my grandfather because I love him, and he you know, paved the way to my, you know, I'm again putting words in your mouth. Don't take this. You know, paved the way to my understanding my masculinity, paved the way to understanding my place in society, and paved the way for me to be a success as I am and with who I am. And they may very well have started a business in their lives that you're still connected to. And if that's the case, then there could be a lot of animosity still hanging out, right? Because it's like, finding your identity is going to be difficult when faced with that sort of an uphill battle.
Absolutely.
Now, and then that's security, and then you're not successful because you need security from this thing that you're not. And you know, so when I hear like I still think I'm a failure, right? Like, it's okay. It's okay to continue to do that as long as we're keeping it in check. Meaning, when we get triggered by it, we go back and examine it. We don't put it out and you know, and for me, what I put out in the world is like, I'm vulnerable out in the world. And I'm not trying to minimize the work that I'm doing, but I'm also not creating an addiction to presenting the work that I'm doing.
There you go. Right? There you go.
So it's real important to be able to understand all of this. And I don't want to just kind of take what you threw at me and like spit it back, but it's like,
no, I think
I love you, and I want to make sure that like, this is we're being honest. Like,
that's exactly right. And this is what I think. I think that this is precisely the, you know, the reason when we say out in the world, it's very important, especially in recovery, in healing, to have people in your circle that you can throw things at and you can speak to, and we need those connections with people in our lives that, you know, that can tell us those things and aren't afraid, because unfortunately right now we live in a culture that says we cannot disagree or we cannot say real helpful things to each other. This, for me and for us, is helpful because I don't always have somebody to remind me or hear something in my, you know, in something I'm saying and say, you might have done some work there, but there's still some work to be done.
If you think you're done, you're wrong. Well, you're wrong. Not you, but if anybody thinks they're done, they're wrong.
It's never done.
It's not done. It's not about being done.
It's not. And so
it's about checking your trigger.
Powerful point. It's the powerful point of why it's important to have mentorship, why it's important to make connections with people in the world, and to be able to have relationships where that can be said. You know me, I appreciate that. Like, I appreciate that kind of relationship. That, but for us, I think is really special because I can always count on you to give me something and know that you're giving me something in love. Like, you're not giving me something to, like, you know, it's like, go sit off in the corner and think about that. But you're giving me something in love that can only grow me. That can only help me.
And I'd like to point out that I didn't tell you what to do with that.
Exactly.
I don't give a fuck what you do with that. Like, that's your business, right? And that's your work. I'm
That's
just telling you to
work.
check your shit. That's all. You know, like, and that's kind of like, and that's what we need to do. Instead of people coming out and telling people you're wrong, do it this way. You're like, you know what? White supremacists are not wrong. They're white supremacists.
Right.
They're not, they have no intention of opening their heart to anybody other than white people. And they have no intention of looking at America as being built by anybody but white people. So how are they wrong? They don't even have the intention of doing that.
Right.
They,
Right.
I mean, I've always, I was in a conversation with someone not long ago. I think it was, you know, I think it was during this administration, and I had mentioned that in Spain, because I want to move to Spain, not because of the administration or anything like that. I wanted to move to Spain when Obama was president, so it has nothing to do with that. But I talked about how Spain has the Franquistas are there still, which are people who supported Franco. And Franco is like, you know, to the Spanish, Franco is like the worst to most of the Spanish. And like he's a fascist and all this other stuff. He ran the fascist government. So, but they have a voice in the government. Not that they make any decisions because they're so small, but imagine just being able to at least have a motherfucking Nazi party just so we know who's a motherfucking Nazi. Like that in and of itself is it's so important to know your neighbor's a Nazi. And if they can, you know, if they can just be their Nazi selves, then it's like, all right, well, we know we got to check them. Like,
Yep.
and that's it. You just got to make sure, like, you know, like, I mean, I remember I used to go to a bar and, you know, you go and you sit down and a Nazi would come in every now and again. I mean, I grew up in a big city, and you know, there was a Nazi bar there was a bar that catered to some Nazis when I was younger. But any other bar, as soon as a Nazi sat down, they wouldn't get served at all, because you can't open yourself up to being a Nazi bar. And the thing is we want you out there so we can see you and we can be like, no, we don't serve your kind.
Yep.
When you have those sorts of ideas.
Gotcha.
You know, when you're trying to infiltrate an area, because we know what you do as Nazis, right? Like, we don't want that.
Right.
You know, and we want you to be free to express yourself as a Nazi. And we want, like, you got a bar, go ahead and whatever. And I'm attacking the Nazis right now specifically, but you know, it's just like I want to know who I'm talking to, and if my neighbor's a Nazi, I want to know that.
Yeah, I need to know that.
And it's like I don't think they should hide themselves, just like I don't want to hide myself. And I think if they don't hide themselves, they'll be able to be more honest with themselves a lot quicker. Because when you hide yourself, what we talked about before, you double down or you revert, right?
Yep.
And so what ends up happening is when you push them down, they double down. And then we get all this fucking shit that we're dealing with now.
Exactly. It's exactly the truth, man. It's exactly the truth.
And that's why I want people to recover themselves. Because, you know, I always say, like, if I get a client and they're a murderer, nothing I can do about that. But I can get them to be okay with that. If that's who they really are. I don't think that's who they really are. Right? I don't believe that anybody that comes to me and is just like, you know, I murder people.
Yeah.
And if they're cool with that, like, well, I don't know, like, but it's like having to respect the person for where they're at. I can't. We talk a lot about, in the recovery world, we talk a lot about like overcoming stigma.
Yeah.
But there's some stigmas we still don't want to overcome.
Yep.
And the thing is if you want to overcome stigma, it's a vast field of lots of different stigmas that we carry, and
there's so many.
We put people down all the time for what we put down Trump supporters easily. No problem. I can do that all day. And it's like you're carrying, and they're not being shamed by it is the thing that frustrates you the most. Not you personally, but someone who's trying to put down someone and saying, oh, stupid or like unintelligent or southern or whatever, right? Like these labels. It's like, and if they can't identify with that, that frustrates you more, right?
Yeah.
Like, and there's nothing healthy about that. I hope everything I'm saying is coming off well, because like it's really difficult to talk about these things, again, going deeper and deeper and deeper.
Well, it is.
And as we go deeper, it requires a more open mind.
Right.
And it's like, I don't want it to be said that like I want to, like I'm not in support of Nazis, like, racists or rapists or other things like that. But
I know.
But we do have to, like, one of the things that frustrates me sometimes in the world that we run in is this idea that a group of people can eradicate a behavior of another group of people.
Yeah.
Even the idea of ending addiction or and this is sometimes really difficult to say, but even ending like abuse of all sorts. You can't end abuse. You can open up the conversation so that abusers don't double down, meaning they don't have stigma attached to their abuse. So now we can have an honest conversation. When you attach stigma, you end up doubling down.
Well,
many people do.
And say it like this: when you attach stigma, again, how much of that stigma keeps people from coming forward? You said
well,
that.
That's exactly it, right? When you can have the conversation.
Exactly. And when we have the conversations, then we make it easier and more open and safer to talk about, so that then, people can be helped. No, we're not going to end abuse, but we can truly open up a conversation for healing from such. And as I think the more we open up healing and generations go on and continue to come on, then we create a different space. I mean, just look at the mental health conversations that we can have today that 30 years ago were unheard of. You kept your shit at home. You don't go outside and talk about these things. And so I think what you make a powerful point in everything that you've said, because what it actually represents is that statement of loving people or working with people where they truly are. And that, to me, is what creates a powerful mentor, a powerful person that works with somebody else. Because a lot of people throw that around. A lot of people say, well, I can love you where you are. And yet, again, what you said is true. You can say that, but it's not always true. It's a hard thing to do.
I really hate to stop you again. I really do.
This guy.
But I don't love people where they are.
Well, you
love people where I am.
Well, you accept them is what I'm saying. Like, you are accepting.
I love them. I love them. And regardless of where they are. And here's what I mean by that. and one of my and again, this is just language probably. When I hear someone say, I want to love you where you are, if they meet the Dalai Lama, are they going to love the Dalai Lama where he is? Because if they are, why aren't they where the Dalai Lama is?
Well said.
So what you're initially, like, when you say, I'm going to love you where you are, the first thing you reference is that I'm better. That's a shit place to start. Because you've all of a sudden labeled both yourself and that person. When you can approach every relationship and love that relationship from where you are, and if you can do that, then you just open yourself up, and you don't like someone explained it to me and it didn't make sense to me. And it was like, if you go into a room and there's a skittish dog, you have to be slow. And I'm like, well, is the dog going to spend the rest of its life in that room? Because if not, I ain't got to be slow. Ain't nobody else going to be slow for that dog. It's going to go out in the world. It's going to have to take care of itself as the world is. I'm going to love the dog from where I am. And maybe I move a little fast for it. Maybe I can adjust that a little bit, but I'm not required to do shit for that dog. I love that dog. And I know that dog is capable of taking care of itself. Like, that's why it's here. And I love my clients in that way. And I love my friends in that way. And it's, and that's why it's real. Like, and when I chime in and say this, it's only because it's like it's not hard for me to speak because I love you. Right?
Yeah. When
I'm loving you where you're at, oh, well, they're just there and I can't do nothing about it. Like, we start to realize that we're censoring ourselves for the situation. And the thing is like, you're in the situation. Like, that's happening for a reason. We need you in that situation. We don't need who you think you're supposed to be in that situation, because you're gonna be wrong. You're gonna be wrong. So just when you get called to say something, and that's hard. It's hard to be able to be like, how do I say this right? Once we stop thinking there is a right,
exactly,
then we'll be able to speak.
Yes.
But we process all this first. And that's the problem. We're living up here when we're connecting here.
Yes. And it's a very hard thing to do. I mean, it really can be a very hard thing to do.
I've been working on it my whole life. I'm not done. Like I don't, and it's not good. It's like I fuck up all the time. And that's okay, because we're gonna. The idea that we're not is faulty.
No,
the idea that we're not going to say the wrong thing is wrong. The idea that we're going to be understood is wrong. If you think I'm not coming into this conversation thinking you're going to understand me. I'm coming into this conversation going, you're going to love me. And I'm going to love you, and we're going to come and we're going to connect. And if we both approach this from where we are individually and say, I love you, then I know what you're saying is coming from a space of love. And when I get triggered, I have to bring that back later. And I don't have to apologize to you for being triggered or getting angry or something, but I have to make sure that I take care of myself with that.
Absolutely. Well, this is the reason that I wanted so desperately to have you on, because, we talk about the work. And, I know our conversations. We talk about the work a lot, but in a lot of ways, I don't think that nobody really, I don't think that you can have people understand what that means until you get to do the work. You get to do some of the work in front of them. You know what I mean? And so, we have conversations all the time, and, I constantly get to come away from our conversation and really feel enlightened. I feel like, things have made sense. I feel like it's an honest place to be. And I don't believe that, I don't know. I just never realized how powerful and necessary that is, because, I guess like most people, you get used to making friendships and relationships, and, with all of these different little rules and labels, but at the same time, to have an honest, heart connected friendship is a really different thing, and it's very valuable. And I also believe that it has given my audience, which was my intention for having you here, because the people that show up on this platform day after day after day are people that want to do work. They're not those that just want to get a how to and go for it. They want to do the work. They wouldn't come back here time after time over the stuff that we talk about and not be wanting to do the work. And so, that's why I wanted them to get a glimpse also of what your work entails, and what they also would be getting by going to your workshops, or getting involved with your mentoring program. I would like, we're a little at time, but I still want you to kind of.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, we're just scratching the surface. We're already an hour in.
I know, right? I know. You guys are just privy to our conversations here right now. But you are giving away. Again, I want to thank you for being so gracious to give away some tickets to your next workshop, so that the people here that would be interested in winning those tickets and really want to dive in. How can they get in touch with you in order to be in the running to win those tickets, and how can they get more information about working with you?
Well, I would say just go to my website, Martin John, MartinJon, no H in that John, .com. Another site, it's just another address, same site, is recoveryourself.life. And you can sign up for my email list tonight. And I'll even go through till maybe noon tomorrow, because my workshop is Tuesday. So if anybody that signs up for my email list tonight or tomorrow before noon, I'll say Eastern time, because you guys are in Eastern. Well, you're in Eastern, so we'll say noon Eastern tomorrow. So you got 12, 15 hours, something like that. 13, 14 hours. Awesome. To sign up, and martinjohn.com. There is a email submission at the bottom of the first page. You can also find some like in other places on the site. If that's not an option for you, find me on Instagram, and then just send me a message on Instagram, a private message on Instagram. I will happily respond. Again, that's Martin John, MartinJon.
And all that's in the description as well under this video. And I made this nice little link tree of Martin's.
Yeah, all that I do is out on that link tree, and well, I mean, I'm sure it's not. I'm sure I do more. And I want your audience to know that I don't know that we've spoken more than 8 times.
True.
So I mean, in how you have expressed our friendship, even though our friendship is deep and it is sort of like a real connection.
Yep.
And that might be something that like that I engender, because I have a lot of friendships that are like that, where I mean, I might not talk to someone for a while, but it's like when we talk, it's like, I love you, you're great. Yep. Like let's and that connection is always there. But but when you're listening to this, and if you already did, you've heard like Lona say, like, we speak all the time. We've known each other for 8 months, maybe.
Yeah, I think when I say we talk, I probably meant we talk about these things.
Yeah, when we talk, this is how it goes. But
what we talk about. Yeah.
But even still, like, it could come off just because of how we are connected and how we speak about this and how comfortable I am with like saying something. It's funny. Like, I know we're out of time, but I'm going to keep going anyway. One of the things I recently interviewed this woman, Dr. Anna Lemke, who wrote Drug Dealer MD and all about the opioid crisis. And she talked about being a doctor, and she said, well, to solve the problem, we'll medicate. And in that interview, I said, like word for word almost, I want to check your language. You said you're solving a problem, and you're not. And I only bring that up to be like, this is how we need to be able to talk to people. It wasn't challenging for her, right? I didn't challenge her because she wants this sort of information. Otherwise, she wouldn't be talking to me, one. But it was about being like, hey, let's be honest here. Like, your language, the language of the medical industry is like, we're solving a problem by doing this. And she knows that she's not, because she wrote Drug Dealer MD. But to your point of, we need to be able to communicate to one another, because we get caught in our own language all the time. And our own language is the thing that's hiding who we are from us.
Yeah.
Right. And we have to really face that. And we have to face those things. And by being able to be honest with you, and you accept it and not run away and say, well, I don't want to talk to you because you're making me challenge myself. That I'm also open to that. Right. I want to know. And if it does trigger me, great. I might run away, but then I'm going to do that work because I know that's what's going to expand my life.
Absolutely. I think it's the work that expands us. And I know for myself, running away from the work can be easy just because, of the perception of what, I think sometimes we think of the work as being something external. And I know in my own life, that external thing, everything I chased externally was like I think of those dog races, and I feel so bad for them because they're never going to catch, that rabbit that just runs. And I feel like as I in my life continue to run after external things, even in the beginning of my recovery, when I didn't really even know any better, I thought it was how we did it. And I kept coming up empty. And I kept realizing that every time I would think that I got to the answer, it would come up short. And, there was the moment in there where I had to make that decision of, do I go into the internal work, or do I finally turn my back on this for good and just use until I'm, out of here? And so I'm grateful every day, as difficult as it is sometimes, as strange as it can feel, that nervous system, that moment of attack almost, where your nervous system's kind of going crazy because you're sitting in a conversation that maybe you would have run from earlier, and you can sit in it, and it doesn't mean you're going to sit there and feel like it's unicorns and rainbows. But when you know that this is the path to recovering yourself, then it gives you the ability to sit and know this is for my own good.
Yeah.
And, I don't want people to think that, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to express what I'm thinking or feeling. There's a difference in knowing when you are in a connection with someone who is just as interested in your growth as their growth, or having this open conversation, versus someone that wants to hurt you. And people know that you got to know the difference, to sit into things that make you uncomfortable. And, I hope that what we have done here tonight has been maybe an example or an expression of what I mean when I say the work. This is the work, because I don't often get to explain it the way that you and I have shown it here. And I'm
Yeah,
greatly
the work, like
that.
that sort of Brene Brown kind of like do the work, like doesn't mean shit. Doesn't mean
Yeah.
shit. Like and for all the good, all of these wonderful people that have come before us have done. It has only simplified the most complex things that we're going to do, and it's kind of unfortunate, and it's kind of it is an external, right? And that, like the greyhound races are real interesting because if a greyhound catches that rabbit, which they do on occasion,
Yeah.
they'll never run again.
Right.
The thing that they're running for is something, once they catch it, they don't want anymore. That's the problem with like humans continuing to try and fill that need. A dog at least understands, like, I got it, and it's not what I thought it was. It's not what I thought it was. I thought it was a rabbit, but it's just a stuffed animal. It's just a wooden sculpture. I don't have. It's not what I want. The thing is humans go out every day chasing the rabbit, and the thing is they catch it over and over, and they continue to chase it.
Yeah.
And it's not. At least the dog knows that it's as soon as they catch it, wait, this isn't what I wanted.
So true, man.
And they stop.
So true. So true. It's with money. It's with gosh. I mean, I
don't know how many people talk to me about it. Like, I want a relationship. It's like, you've been in a relationship. Like, I'm not saying that relationships are bad or we shouldn't have them and stuff. It's just like, what are you chasing? Because like, you are the relationship you're going to continue to have. So that's the one you want to work on.
Yes.
And having said that, I don't have children. I don't have I don't have a partner. I don't have, like all of these sorts of things. But I have amazing relationships with people, like friendships like you and with other friends and stuff. And all of that is so important because that's what you want. Like you want connection. You don't want to have a partner, right? Like a partner, like I understand what a partner can feel like, but a partner is yet another external.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right.
It will help you learn about yourself. By no means. By no means is that not true. But if it helps you learn about yourself only to hide yourself behind your partner, it's not worth it.
So true. So true. It's why that whole myth of you complete me, what a sad moment that was. That we have this thing that we say sounds so pretty, but it is so it is so far off.
I don't want to complete you.
No.
Right? I want someone that's complete.
Exactly. I can't carry that. I will drop it. This will go way wrong. No, can't carry that. And these are the gifts to me. For me in my own life, these are the gifts of recovery. I could not have ever had a relationship, a connection, because I don't even like to call them relationships. I like to call them connections. And I would not have ever gotten the opportunity possibly to have connection in the connections that I have in my life. And I can truly say that the connections I have in my life today are amazing, and they're chosen by me for reasons that means something to me today, like really, really means something to me today. And that's valuable, man.
And it doesn't mean you can define that. It's just like meaning comes from here and has no language.
So true.
If I could define meaning as it is a transactional relationship which gives me A, B, C, D, and that has meaning, right? Like, I know people who have relationships in which their meaning is based in transactional relationships, which is the most damaging sort of relationship that we can have. And yet, the relationship I have with you, the relationship I have with other guests that I've had, like, those are deep relationships that will never go away and don't require me to maintain them.
Yes.
They exist.
Yes. Yes. And that's honestly, that is refreshing for me. And I won't say all the connections that I have in at this moment, but a few of them.
Yeah,
You're
no.
like one of them, where that we have a connection that does not require work on either part of having to sustain something. That where if you come across, like, this is how it happens a lot of times, forever who's still here with us, how it happens a lot of times is I will get this feeling that will just kind of, seems like it comes up from here, and it'll just, Martin will come in my head, something, and just some little thing will come, oh, I should reach out to Martin and just remind him what a rock star he is today, or just how grateful I am for him today. And then that's what I do. And then, put the phone down, and, and a little while later, Martin comes back and says, hey, I really needed that, or vice versa. It just comes up in this feeling, but it doesn't take this, well, you got to call me on this day and on this day. And if we don't talk, we kind of drift away. And I think that's really a good, that's just a great, refreshing thing for me.
Yeah. The work I require from you is that you love yourself.
That's it.
And the minute you stop doing that, you're going to get less and less and less of me. Because that, like, I require love in my life, right? But I require it from me. And as you stop loving yourself, you're going to start looking for it in other people. Right. And you don't look for it in me. You receive it from me.
That's it.
And that's the same way that I have. Like, I'm not looking for love from you, but I get to receive it.
That's true. Man, we could get more on that side of.
Yeah, we're just, again, scratching the surface.
Man. That's it. Well, Martin, man, thanks so much for coming on tonight, and just, again, and being yourself, and allowing us to have this great, honest conversation with people that I care about, with people that I'm really concerned about, how just them understanding how much power they hold about their own lives, and just how close they are to healing, and to offer them someone like yourself that has the ability to help people see the same things, and to really help somebody through the work, because the work is meaningful, and the way that you guide and help with the work is it's just not coded in anything that's not necessary. It comes from a place that is passionate, that is sincere from you, and that, I can only imagine that, I've experienced the just the benefits of having you as a mentor in a way, and a friend, and helping me in my evolution and recovery to myself. So I'll always appreciate you, and always love spending time with you whenever you challenge me to think and love myself more, and to think through things more. It's valuable in the world. So, guys and ladies and non-binaries and every human being that has shown up here tonight, who is still here, go check out martinjohn.com, right? Or recoveryourself.life tonight. Hit the link tree up. Everything's also in the description box on the video. And make sure that you get in the running for those 3 tickets to the next workshop, which is Tuesday. So you've got right now until 12 noon Eastern time tomorrow to get in the runnings. And if you go on Instagram, then just make sure Martin knows, just put LC, LC or Recovery Soul Food, and, make sure that he knows that you're part of this beautiful family. And, I would never introduce all of you to someone that I didn't know was just just an amazing human being. So please know that once again, I give you Martin John Garcia, one of my favorite human beings. And I thank you again, man. Thanks for being here and having this conversation.
Absolutely. It's
It's
always a pleasure to work with you, man.
It is. It is. All right, everybody, have an amazing time. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. You know all that stuff you do on YouTube and Facebook. Know I love you, and I'll see you again Wednesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Oh, thanks, Martin. We'll
Ciao.
talk soon. All right, bye, buddy.